All right. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Persuasion by the Pint. I'm Jonathan Taylor, along with
Sean McCool.
Sean. Today, we're going to have some fun. We're going to be talking about how our listeners can start their own cults.
Yeah, absolutely. Step-by-step guide here today on this show.
That's right.
Yeah, take notes. We'll be able to have you up and running in no time at all. There's a small fee.
You'll be able to write your own book without even typing a keyboard whatsoever.
Yeah, we do request a small donation.
That's right. That's right. The information that we're giving is definitely worth the price that you're paying.
Yeah, worth every penny. You could leave us a review over on wherever you listen to podcasts if you want. That would be nice.
That's right.
We don't have many of those, despite doing this for 4 years.
We'll take them.
Yeah,
we're not ashamed.
Yeah,
we're not ashamed to solicit reviews.
Yeah, so we'll talk about how to be a cult leader. Got some interesting, got a couple other little things. You found a cool another AI tool. We'll talk about that. Here's a little teaser to get the show right before we go into our juvenile beer talk segment.
Yep.
We're going to reveal the number one most popular book and course in prison.
Ooh. Yeah, this was
surprised me when I saw that.
Yeah, me too. And it's pretty much like on demand. I didn't realize this. Like people are waiting in line to take this course.
Yeah. So be thinking about that as you listen. Like what would be the number one course inmates would be staying in line wanting to take?
Yep.
You know, that's the question.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, let's do a little juvenile beer talk. You said you're excited about whatever you have today. I'm a little excited about mine as well. So we'll see where they land on the spectrum.
All right. Well, I will begin by sharing mine for our listening audience or our watching audience. I have a blueberry barrel wheat from Kentucky, from the makers up in Lexington Brewing Company.
Yeah.
Haven't had this one before. So had quite a few of these, but not a blueberry wheat to my recollection. It was just released last year, so I know I didn't have it. 8% ABV. It says this Kentucky Blueberry Barrel Wheat is an American wheat ale style with light malty notes and sweet blueberry fruit taste. It's well balanced with a hint of tartness and crisp citrus finish.
Okay.
I'm always a sucker for some blueberries, especially during the summer.
Yeah. So blueberry barrel wheat. So is it aged in barrels? It doesn't say really, but seems like it might be.
That's their thing, man.
I know it's their thing, so it almost has to be. I just didn't know you could put
it on the screen though, does it?
Didn't know you could put wheat ale in a barrel, but I guess you put anything in a barrel these days.
I'll be able to tell you for sure.
Yeah. So I mean, 8%, it would make sense that there's some aging going on with the alcohol or something. So, well, we're on a similar page here as far as types of beer. So I had mine. So mine is from Martin House Brewing, which I've had in quite a few times. Don't have a picture of the beer here, but I do have a picture in my with the can. I'll just hold it up to the screen here. It is called Sweet Magnolia.
Sweet Magnolia.
And it's an Imperial Blonde with honey and vanilla.
That sounds like it should come from Georgia. Like it is Sweet also Magnolias.
Like Savannah or something, right?
Down in Southeast Georgia.
Chip and Joanna Gaines are from Texas, and they've got Magnolia Network, and so they always plant a magnolia tree. So I think there's quite a bit of magnolias here in Texas as well.
Sure.
So Sweet Magnolia, Imperial Blonde with honey and vanilla. It also comes in at 8%. So, so I'm ready to cheer. Definitely looks like a ale. So.
Oh yeah. So we both have some lighter colors today. Let me pour mine here. Let's hold those up side by side and see what they look like there. Yeah,
Yours is a little redder.
I think it's probably the lighting in here.
Could be.
But yeah, I think overall, probably mine's a little lighter just by judging.
All right. Cheers.
All right. Cheers.
Okay.
I know who this is.
Looks like is this a DD,
So-
a double D?
I got to give props because our buddy David sent a link to this last week, and he's the one that got me started watching it. So, David, we're gonna be talking about this today, man.
Yeah, he our Facebook user says I love cults. All right, well, you're in the right place today. Man, my beer is really good. I haven't had like a really, really good beer in a while on the show. And man, he just keeps firing the comments in here. So this one's really good. How's yours?
It's got it's not what I expected. So to answer your question, there is no bourbon flavor to it, or bourbon barrel flavor.
No barrel.
And so it's a little tart on the back end. It's not terrible, but it's not quite what I expected. So I'm going to take one more strong sip. It's not bad at all. I'm going to give it a 3. I'm going to give it a 3.8. It's not one of my favorites from the Lexington Brewing, but it's also kind of refreshing, I guess. It's a good summer beer, for sure.
Yeah, this is interesting because it's definitely got a little sweetness, as the name implies, sweet magnolia. It's got it definitely leans a little heavier, but it's kind of right on the line between the lighter and the heavier.
Yeah.
So I really like it. It's sweet, creamy. Actually, it's got like a creaminess to it.
Mm-hmm.
Like a cream ale.
Yeah.
I really, really like it. I'm going to give it, haven't done this in a while. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5.
Whoa. Did not see that.
Yes, it is that good. So
you didn't really lead up to that. You just kind of,
I just jumped in on you. I was trying to hint, but I didn't know what else to say. So no, yeah, that's, I give it a 5. So.
Which we rarely do. So I got to write this one down.
Yeah. Sweet magnolia.
Sweet magnolia.
Imperial
and
Blonde.
Remind me, where did you find it?
Well, this one was at the Heb. So, but it's Martin House Brewing.
Okay.
I don't know if they distribute nationwide or not.
All right.
So,
well, any 5 goes on our list.
Yeah.
I got to find it.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's dive into cults.
Yeah.
I mean, not actually. We don't want to be in a cult necessarily, but as the second
teach our listeners how to become one.
Yeah.
Or how to start one.
Yeah. We have an article that we're going to kind of segue into that will actually may prove that you're actually already in several cults, more than likely.
Well, yeah, you don't have to be Jim Jones or Charles Manson.
Yeah, so there is a series right now on Netflix that is in the top 10 for like docuseries and some other things. So, it's showing up in a lot of people's feeds.
Yeah.
And it is called How to Become a Cult Leader.
Yep.
And there's season 1. And so far it's got, I think, 6 or 8 episodes.
Do you know who one of the producers, or I guess he's one of the executive producers of the show? I didn't realize this, but it's Peter Dinklage.
He's the voice.
Well, he's also a producer too.
Is he? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's read the official little bio from Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
Cults offer the chance to belong, to make the world a better place, to ... take advantage of vulnerability, suppress thoughts, stage deadly plots, and ruin lives. Nevertheless, there are harsh lessons to be learned from history's most malignant manipulators. That's why the creators of the series How to Become a Tyrant hath delivered us unto us the latest installment in their tongue-in-cheek guidebook anthology, How to Become a Cult Leader. The docuseries examines infamous cult leaders' playbooks from achieving unearned devotion to controlling followers' minds, bodies, and souls.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, very light viewing.
It's like 6 episodes.
Yeah.
So you can get through them there. It's real short, like 30-minute.
Yeah, 30-minute episodes. It's like 6 of them. So, a good 3-hour binge, maybe 2 hour and a half.
This isn't like, that series. Remember NXIVM, where they did the cult group NXIVM? That was a pretty long, protracted series.
Or the one with what's her name from King of Queens? She did the exposed, where she exposed, who was it, Scientology?
Oh,
like
yes.
This long.
Yes. Yeah.
Those are kind of drawn out too. So
and
this is, it's a very serious subject, and they they do the show a little bit tongue in cheek. I literally like having step-by-step guidebook and thing like that. But yeah, it's pretty darn accurate. We've talked about some of this stuff on the show before. And yeah, so tell me why you decided to, you were like, let's talk about this today.
Well, David sent me a link to it last week. It got me interested. And then I started getting into it this past week, just because I looked at it. It's like little short episodes. So man, this was good, especially, talking about Charles Manson. I'm always fascinated by that, because some of the skills that he honed were during prison time. So I guess we should go back to your original.
Yeah, let's close that loop. So if you've forgotten already, we said there was a course and a book that's super popular in prison, and it is the book, or the course. It's actually the Dale Carnegie course, which is based on the book How to Win Friends and Influence People. There you go. So was that from when you were on Cell Block C the first time?
Doesn't it look like it?
Yeah, it looks a little rough.
Tattered. It's from the prison library.
I mean, it looks like a 1970s copy. So it's like,
oh man, yeah. So isn't that amazing? He studied this, and some of the lessons from it, which are some of the best lessons. Obviously, this, people in self-help, psychology, people that are in sales, it's always been known as like the sales guide for years, because you learn obviously how to listen to people, how to show empathy. But he used this kind of from a manipulative standpoint to craft his skills of hypnosis. I mean, this is just one of the things that he added to. I mean, he studied a lot in prison. I found it interesting that he not only did he studied Buddha, he studied the Bible, and he studied how to win friends and influence people. But
yeah, I mean, those three always go together. They should just sell it as a box set. I mean, I don't know why it's not more common.
Right. But that course in and of itself, going back to what you said, Sean, is one of the most popular. I mean, people are, according to this docuseries, on the first episode, that the prison inmates are just lining up to go through
the Dale Carnegie course.
The Dale Carnegie course. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm trying to
know. Is it like rehabilitation, or is it just making them worse criminals when they get back out?
It's kind of like putting, weight sets, these heavy weights and everything. You're like, is that a good thing? Am I helping these people, or are we making them stronger?
Yeah, exactly. Survival of the fittest. We're just making them fitter and smarter while they're in prison.
That's right.
So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's I'm sure there's some people out there that they use it for good when they get out, but there's going to be people that take advantage and see the opportunities. So the first episode was on Charles Manson.
Yep.
And then some of the other episodes are, I'm trying to look, see if I had a list. So Jim Jones was episode 2. And I don't remember some of the other names I didn't even really recognize until they talked about
Harry, what was the guy's name? Harry, that's from episode 3.
Yeah. So the cults discussed in this series include the Manson family, the People's Temple, which is Jim Jones, right?
Yep.
before he went to Jonestown.
Yep.
Buddha Field, Heaven's Gate, which most people have heard of Heaven's Gate, right? They were the
Yep.
ones trying to catch the comet. And then it talks about the Unification Church. There's I can't remember what some of the other ones were, but it's interesting how a lot of these Jamie Gomez, that was Heaven's Gate. No, Heaven's Gate was Marshall Applewhite.
Yeah.
So yeah,
The one that I found interesting, I think it was the third one, Jaime Gomez, which is the Budafeld. It kind of delved, kind of went into the psychology, how he controlled the mind. I found that pretty interesting where, here's a guy, I didn't know much about him. Familiar with, most people are familiar with Charles Manson, Jim Jones, but this guy, and
David,
he was kind of one of those guys. He wanted to be a Hollywood actor. He failed at that. He kind of didn't make it. He tried several things in Hollywood and they just fell by the wayside. Then he became, those who can't teach. So he started teaching acting on the side. So that's how he started developing his following when he was teaching acting.
Well, it was interesting in kind of that same vein. Charles Manson, he originally wanted the fame of being a rock star,
right? And
when he couldn't get that, he couldn't pull that off. Then he had to look for another outlet.
Yep, absolutely.
So be careful when you turn people down out there. You never know what you're unlocking or unleashing in somebody.
So I find it interesting that these people, they're always, most people understand this, but they always are influential among the people that are the most vulnerable. And, so they need their, they come in, rescue them from, maybe a wounded self-esteem, maybe rejection, they offer, hope. That's usually most of the, most cult leaders are always empathetic. It's not about them in the beginning. Most people think that a cult leader is, while they are self-absorbed, they also understand that in order to build a following, you have to be focused on the others first, right?
Yeah, that's part of the charisma.
That's right.
It kind of goes both ways, right? It's a strong enough charisma that they come across as confident but it's not. There's enough empathy, like you said, and emotional IQ or emotional quotient,
right?
That they can deflect onto the person and really want to take care of the person or make it seem like that anyway.
Yep.
Well, it's interesting you say that too about kind of some of the followers, because one in the other article that I sent you, and how to start a cult. One of the things they talked about was actually you need extroverts as the first few members.
Right.
And this tracks, like, even if you go all the way back to Jesus and the disciples, not saying that was a cult, just so we don't get the mail.
Right.
But the leader of the disciples was Peter, who was an extrovert, and he's the one that really took the church to the next level. An introvert would not have done that, probably, to that level. Yes. While you want people who are disenfranchised, you want people who are, maybe upset with whatever, they also need to have a little bit of outgoingness to them.
Yeah.
To help you spread the message, because the best way to spread the message is, through referrals.
Right.
It's more convincing if someone else says something nice about you than if you say it about yourself.
Exactly.
And that's
and one of the ways you get buy-in from people who are extroverts is you got to have a strong reason why. It says one of the things I wrote down from the third series, I think, the one about this Jaime guy, you got to have it said you got to have a moving origin story, a very moving, emotional, that appeals to the why. Everybody wants to know why they're doing something. So in I think it was opportunistic for Manson during a time of the 60s where there was a lot of upheaval. There was a lot of rebellion against the status quo, against the people in power. And he took advantage of that. Like, obviously he started in San Francisco, where there's a lot of
late 60s. I mean, went to Haight-Ashbury right at the peak of all that.
Yeah.
So timing was good. Like, couldn't Charles Manson pull that off, even 3 or 4 years later? Probably not.
Right.
So timing is important when you're launching
that's a good
cult.
That's a good point. You kind of wonder if there would have been a Charles Manson had, this taken place during the 70s or the 80s, like during the 80s, during a time of probably a little bit of, completely different time than the 60s, more of a
so would he have been, obviously there were still cults then, right? Heaven's Gate was probably the 80s, right?
Well, that's true. Yeah.
But would his style of cult been successful later, right? So you got to know your time.
Sure.
Just like some companies come and go with different times, some companies do better in good times. Some companies do better, the vice stocks, for instance, do better in bad times, right? The alcohol, tobacco tend to do better when things are tough. People are sedating and numbing out and those kind of things.
That's right.
Or entertainment tends to do well even in recessions. So you got to know when you're starting your cult, you need to know why, and you need to kind of look around at what's going on and see, if your theories and your stuff's going to fit in.
The other thing I wrote down, Sean, is that you offer something exclusive to the truth, like your unique style or your unique message about the truth, right?
But it needs to be based on typically a bigger truth.
Right.
And you just have some little nuance to it.
That's right. Yep.
That makes
something
it
that's a little bit different.
Yeah, a little bit new, a little bit unique, but at the same time based on a bigger truth that I think a lot of people already believe. That's why you see so many cult leaders using, scriptures that are proven and have stood the test of time, whether it's the Bible, whether it's the Quran, whether it's the, one of the Buddhist books, one of the books from I don't even know my text when we get east, but some of those texts over there, some of the yoga traditions, like there's always going to be, there's this huge pool of material that you can pull from,
right? And
you can just, like you said, kind of pull out some pieces, which is really what Manson did when he was in prison, right? He took little pieces of Christianity, little pieces of Buddhism, a little bit of self-help, personal development, and put them in a cocktail shaker, shook them up, and came out with Manson Family.
He took the best of everything that he could use, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so I think he took a lot of the parables from the Bible, stories. Obviously, that's always good when you're giving parables and stories, and then you're kind of trying to mimic the Messiah himself, so he's obviously, he used that to his advantage.
Yeah. I thought the story about Jim Jones was really interesting.
Yeah.
Where as a kid, he lived in a small town, had 5 churches, and he went to all 5 like himself, like even without his parents, like, because he wanted to learn the different aspects of all these different religions. And his whole dream growing up was to be a preacher, pastor,
right?
For whatever reason, like why that happened, why he led into that, maybe because that was the biggest thing going in small town America, and it would probably seem to a young kid that the most powerful people in town were probably the pastors,
right?
Especially in a really small town.
A smaller town for sure. Yeah,
they're definitely one of the top 2 or 3 people in that town. So I could see how that might play into that. But I thought that was fascinating that he would literally run from church service to church service, trying to get a little bit of each Sunday.
Just absorbing.
Yeah. I mean, I think I probably would have went to one Sunday and another the next, but no, he's like
taking it all in, man.
He's like, okay, opening prayer here, songs over here.
It was a Sunday marathon, man.
Yeah, like a holy scavenger hunt.
So I find it one of my takeaways in this series is something that, we talked about cults in the past, but one thing that was kind of a little nuanced to me was that they use control of not only they try to control people's mind, but they also control their actions. They keep them busy, right?
Yeah.
And they do that by just tell them about the importance of servitude. So they keep them busy serving, doing things on a regular basis,
writing letters,
absolutely,
like
just
recruiting.
nonstop.
Yeah.
They never have a moment. I mean, these people, and we've watched series on other cults, but these people have a tendency never to have a moment of spare time to think because they're always so busy. And I think there's a reason behind that is they want them busy working. Obviously, no time for distraction for anything else but the purpose. But the other thing is you have a huge investment. Like, these people have a physical investment. So, you build up, you're always doing. That makes it that much more difficult, I think, for them to leave, just because they've put so much work into something. It's that commitment and consistency from, Cialdini talks about, like, you invest so much and then it's hard to leave once you put that much emotional energy or that much energy into something.
It also ties in, I just pulled up on the screen. It also ties into the tenets of brainwashing, right?
Yeah.
So isolation.
Yes.
Submission, absolute obedience and humility, rewards and punishments for cooperation and non-cooperation, attitude changes, manipulation, reducing critical thinking, and intense indoctrination. But definitely isolation. Obviously, if you're keeping people busy at the headquarters or wherever,
right?
Even if you don't go full blown commune like a lot of these turned into, in the beginning they didn't have that, so they might have an office or they might have a church,
yes,
that you would show up to, and do your work from there. So you're there 8, 9, 10 hours a day, which as we know, it's also how the public school system works.
Yes.
You show up there 8 hours a day and you get brainwashed.
That's right. Absolutely. Indoctrinated.
The submission by, like you said, doing the tasks and it's a servitude type thing. This is your duty.
Yeah.
If you believe in this message, you'll help us promote it.
Yep.
Basic kind of just big discipleship type ideas.
And it's fascinating because there's little reward for them. I mean, it's like there's no the ultimate reward is outside of being a part of something, right?
And that's it. And that's what people want. That's what everybody wants. I think even John Maxwell has said, most people are just walking around, or maybe it was Dan Kennedy. Which one was it? Most people are walking around looking for a place to plug in their umbilical cord.
Yes, man.
Was that I'm Maxwell so glad or was you mentioned Kennedy?
That. Yep, it was Dan Kennedy that said that.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got that. I've got that quote written down. It's funny you mentioned that, Sean, because I was actually going to mention that on today's show and forgot to. But you're absolutely right. It's most people are walking around, umbilical cord in hand, looking for somewhere to plug into. That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's a very visual, vivid picture too. It's like that, and that's why there's also why there's a lot of sayings, and it's why people can advance so quickly in any given niche. There's a great Andy Andrews quote, the author, and he talks about just the person who's just willing to say, follow me, deserves leadership because they're willing to say, follow me.
Yeah.
Like they don't really need qualifications outside of that, because most people are just looking for somebody to follow. So if somebody stands up and says, hey, follow me, there's a really good chance that people will follow them.
Right.
Despite any qualifications or anything else, because people are so desperate for somebody to follow.
Sure.
And you see that all the time. I mean, you see that on social media. You see that on, with celebrities, with cults, with churches, with
and it plays into every aspect, any industry. I don't care what fitness, you see it all the time. You see the lessons in the fitness industry where people start their own. Remember back in P90X and all that stuff, it's
Yeah.
like everybody was on board. You got to do P90X, and
It was its own little cult.
it was. Everybody
Yeah.
followed it.
Well,
It was like
CrossFit was called a cult
CrossFit,
for the longest time,
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of these that, even Russell Brunson, who, he's talked specifically about, building a
Yeah.
culture, right?
Mhm.
And
Yep.
that's the root of the word culture is cult.
Yep.
And it's very similar, right? Because you need people to buy in, you need people to gather around and all
Sure.
be moving towards the same thing.
Right.
The difference with a cult, I think, is that the leader becomes the pivotal thing,
Mhm.
even beyond the mission,
Yeah.
So when the mission or when the leader transcends the mission, that's when things start getting, I think, out of hand a little bit.
Right.
So what? There was another article. Do you want to cover anything else on any of the episodes?
No, we can get in the other because I took some notes from the article that you sent as well.
Yes, this is a really cool article. It's from the website is scienceofpeople.com.
Mm-hmm.
And they've got some really interesting stuff on here. But this one is called How to Start a Cult. And it has 10 different steps. So this is literally your step-by-step guide right here. And we've talked about some of these.
Yep.
I thought these questions were good. Would you ever start a cult? So Jonathan, would you ever start a cult?
Well, not probably intentionally, but
yeah, I mean, it would just happen
unintentionally, maybe.
Yeah,
perhaps
it would just happen.
I could just look around one day and like, oh shoot, this might be a cult.
My bad.
Whoops.
My bad. But while we're here, no, I was actually just having a conversation with a friend before the show, and I was like, and I was talking about this is what we're going to be talking about, and I was like, there's a part of me, if I'm really honest, that would love to be a cult leader.
Well, yeah. I mean, you got the look, Sean, right now with the, you got the flowing beard.
Yeah. I don't have the hair for it though. Like that's what I'm missing. Like all these guys had great hair. I did notice that
you look like a wise guru Zen master with the flowing beard.
Yeah. That's what I'm going for. That's the real plan going on here. But no, I mean, like, I think everybody wants some level of respect. Everybody wants some level of reverence about, people to revere them, so
belonging. I mean, churches, I hate to say this, but, because we're both Christians, and we both, I mean, I go to church, but there's a lot of churches out there, man, that use this to their advantage.
Absolutely.
In getting people on board. When you start reading this stuff, you're like, whoa, I'm not in a cult, but, anybody could take lessons from this. And I think this is just, I don't think necessarily building a following is not a bad thing. I think it's just the brainwashing, in the narcissistic person at the top that leads people off a cliff.
Right. When you start, I guess it becomes a cult when it starts injuring people at some level.
Right.
And I don't know, even that line is kind of hard to just define. I think
when it's hard to leave, that's when you've got problems. When you make it hard to leave and you've tried to, one of the things in that series on Netflix talks about the maintaining, I don't think you've seen this one yet, but it's about maintaining the image and how cult leaders will have to maintain the image, because anybody within an organization that is the slightest bit, suspect can unravel everything. So what they do to prevent that is to use, members within the organization, and they start turning, they start making sure that those people are policing anybody that has doubts, and to the point where in some examples, people were actually killed in some cults, they were eliminated.
That's why you need your own private land to bury bodies. That's why most of them end up getting acres of land.
Hundreds of acres.
Yeah. I mean, the one, I can't remember which one it was. They were out in California. They ended up with like 60,000 acres, that they bought through members' donations and stuff. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yep.
So here, I was funny while you were talking. You were like, making it difficult to get away, and I immediately thought like, oh, you mean like Apple? Like I can't get rid of Apple now because all my devices
Of
talk
course.
to each other, or
That's
Google
right.
because my email, half my
It's
sign-ins,
painful. Yes.
the pain of disconnect for those
Mm,
is real.
yeah. Right.
And these companies know that. That's why they've all gone or tried. So many of them have tried to go to sticky models like memberships and things like that because you want the pain of disconnect. That's what
Right.
creates loyalty. That's what creates loyal followers.
Right.
This question I thought was interesting too. Would you ever join a cult?
Mm.
I would say no, not intentionally, but I'm sure I'm susceptible for sure. Like
Absolutely.
I'm aware that I am susceptible to joining a cult. Absolutely.
I think everybody is. Yeah. It's just human nature.
And if you think you're not,
want to
you're
belong.
probably, yeah.
So what did we talk about last week on our last week's episode? We were talking about like, something as simple as pickleball. What is one of the biggest ways that pickleball, when they rebranded it as a social community, bringing people together. People want to belong to something. And so they use that to their advantage. I think that's one of the reasons why it's probably one of the fastest growing sports in America today, is not because it's a fun game. I mean, it is fun, but it's a social event. It brings people together.
It's FOMO too, right? It's like, I don't want to be missing out.
That's right.
On what my neighbors are doing over here,
Yep,
so
exactly.
Next thing you know, you have an all-night pickleball tournament.
That's right. And they make it available. Your courts available, social gathering, being a part of something, especially as you get older, and then ease of entrance. I think they lower the barrier of entry.
This was an interesting thing. And a lot of this information from this article comes from the book, The Culting of Brands by Douglas Atkin. So they said, what's interesting about cult members is they're not a bunch of weirdos or outsiders. They tend to make up, if you were to take a cult population and, transpose it over to the regular population, it would have about the same split of demographics, sociographics, psychographics, and everything else.
Yeah.
So because it becomes its own little community and world, which is made up of all kinds of different people. So you definitely have to be very careful to think that, I would never fall for that, because that's exactly when you're most, vulnerable to that kind of influence.
Yep.
Us versus them, you got to have we've talked about this many times on the show. You've got to have an enemy.
Yes.
And it could be people.
Got to create some tension there.
Yeah. Could be people, time, all kinds of stuff.
Everybody needs a cause to fight. I think a cause to fight against. You give people a cause to fight against, and they'll go to war for you. So,
and something to stand for as well. I mean, we've talked about this in the political statements. It seems like if you're for something, it tends to do better most of the time in presidential campaigns anyway, than against. There's both always.
Yep.
But if your main slogan is more for something, it tends to do a little bit better than being against something else, right?
Yeah, right.
So yeah, they gave an example in this article of a company that sells called Client Joy, that does gift boxes, foods, candles, cups, all kind of stuff. But and he was taking some of these cult-like attributes and putting it on a company. And we've all had companies that we really like, Black Rifle Coffee.
Yeah.
Harley Davidson's a
huge
example.
Yeah, that's a great
Apple is another one. So yeah, those are all things. So what were some of the most, out of these 10 steps, any of those stand out at you from this article?
I like where they talk about number 8 about becoming a member. So they really make things, I think you see this in a lot of things, even outside of cults, you make it hard to get in. Like you always hear the thing where it's like, we make it exclusive. We make it hard to get in. We, we create dues. You create membership dues, but it's not open to everyone. So the scarcity mentality, you create scarcity, and that is very attractive. People want to be part of something that is not available to everyone.
Isn't that funny? Like, people want to be a part of something that not everybody's a part of, but they want to be a part of what other people are a part of.
Exactly.
Like,
it's the dichotomy. I mean,
it's like really weird. It's like, oh, I want to be 100% unique and not be like all my other loser friends. So I'm going to go over here and join all these people and do exactly what they tell me to do.
Right.
It's like the grunge kids or the emo kids or the preps kids or the jocks or the whatever. Like, I don't know what today's terminology. That's our 80s terminology. But you get people to invest. Yeah. Like so much energy and so much mental, physical energy into something that they don't have anything. I mean, I think that's going back to the work thing. They don't have anything else they can do. Like they are 100% committed to the cause. And I think that's part of just locking them in. Once you make it exclusive, you bring them in. Well, even, and then, to go back to your example of pickleball, right? Yeah. So once you're in it, then you got to buy a paddle. So you're investing, right? Yeah. Then you might join a league. So that's another investment, right? And now you're committed your time and your money. That's right. And so it's sometimes the membership is not like necessarily even just a membership fee, but it could be the equipment required to be in that group, right? Right. So if I want to be a boat guy and go join the boat cult on Saturday and park in the cove with the party cove, I got to have a boat. I got to have, water toys, like all the different things you got to have to kind of. And then of course you're joining a social media, a community, whether it's on social media. Hey, is everybody going to be out this week? And then if you're not out, enough, then you become ostracized. Like, oh, you're missing this week. Yeah, exactly. You're not going to be a part of it. Yeah, and then you're not quite as cool the next time you go, and then next thing you know, you drifted off, right? You're outside. You're an outsider. Yeah. So one of the ones I thought was good, and you see this a lot, and may get some hate mail from this, but I think a company. Well, there's a lot of companies that do this well, but I think one of the groups that does this really, really well. And number 5 was to have lingo and icons. Oh, yes. Yeah, I wrote that one down. I think the multi-level marketing, inside work, sales, whatever you want to call it, MLM, yeah, they do a great job of this, right? Absolutely. They have their own lingo, they have their own icons, they have levels, they have, whether it's, they all have some type of, stones or jewelry or pins or something. Absolutely. Know where they're at. But even martial arts studios, right? I mean, martial arts, right? You get the belts and there's different colored belts. That's an icon. Yeah. When you walk into any dojo, that you're going to see immediately kind of the different, sets of people. But those people inside there know what it means more than the people who are on the outside. And I think it was, that's right. I think it was Scientology that used scarves. Right, they had these different colored silk scarves that you got when you got to different levels. Yep, that kind of stuff is really, really powerful. ClickFunnels does it with their records. When you hit a certain number of, the $1 million mark on your sales, the $10 million mark, and they send you the plaques and things like that. Nexium, remember that you got branded once you were official. You got the brand. You got like a cow brand on you. Like, which is another lesson. I mean, that locks you in. You got this thing on your, on your backside or your arm or whatever. Well, was it the Manson that did the X on their forehead? That's right. Yes, that was Charles Manson. First, they were doing like cuts, and they were like, "Oh, that's too slow. We're going to use a screwdriver and burn it in." Like, okay, yeah, that sounds. The cool. Girl was like, "No, it didn't hurt at all." I'm like, what? What? Yeah, no big deal. Good drugs you're taking right there. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. I like let's see, the one of the last ones. What was the let's see, social proof. They use a lot of social proof.
what is it? Learn
from your cultees.
Learn from your cultees, which is basically just another terminology for using social proof to give examples. So they're big on that.
And they were also like, watch what your clients or your members or whatever, watch what they do. Like, what are your clients talking about or sharing your product? What are your clients getting up and doing themselves? Could you help them with that in some way?
Yeah. Yep.
Like if you could follow them around with the camera, what are they doing once they get your product, or right before they get your product, or right before they use it, or right after they use it? That's always a good place to find complementary products.
That's right.
And I think a lot of, supplement companies are a good example of this, where they used to just sell supplement, protein powder, for instance.
Right.
They're like, oh, we could also give them a shaker bottle, because they're always looking for some way to mix their shake.
Right.
And then you realize, oh, they're also, if they're taking protein powder, they're probably needing a pre-workout as well. And you start to just expand the whole universe of that person. And you just get more and more entrenched, so that the, pain of separation again is higher.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's good. Anything else on
that? These are all great takeaway lessons. I mean, you don't have to be a cult, but it's all about creating influence, influence and persuasion. I mean, everything that we've talked about, the whole point of this podcast is not for you to go out and create a cult, but it's to literally create influence in your marketplace. And there's so many examples. I mean, just in this article, we'll post a link to the article that you've listed, Sean, but I think the biggest takeaway, one of the biggest takeaways I have is like, people, you don't sell dogma, you sell belonging to something. So don't sell the idea, sell the belonging to the idea, what that means. Right.
Yeah.
So I think people, as we've discussed, everyone wants to be a part of something greater than themselves. And if you can tie your product, your service, and people do it all the time, you mentioned Apple, it's more about just a MacBook or an iPhone or, an iPad. They did a fantastic job in their marketing of creating something much more than just a product, but creating that creator space, for people that were creators. Hey, this is
rebel creators.
That's right. Yeah.
And that was really definitely the group that launched Apple, back in the day with the 1984 ad and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But even today, they're so entrenched now, and they're obviously much more mainstream than they were back then. But now it's like a lot of your friends have it, so you kind of feel left out if you don't have it. So it's still about belonging. It's just in a little different way, and it's more led by Apple owners instead of Apple itself.
Right.
Where before Apple really had to push that message. Now it just kind of happens on its own. And you can see that because they haven't really released any amazing products in a while.
Right.
But they're more profitable than they've ever been.
Yeah.
So they may have lost their innovation, but they've kept the belonging and for the most part, they've kind of kept some of the cool factor. I do think a lot of those, some of the, I don't think the creative rebels have left. I do think some of the tech rebels have left, and they've gone to Android and some of those platforms.
Yeah.
So
I'm just curious. I'm throwing this out there.
Okay.
What is a product that maybe you have purchased recently that sold you beyond the product itself, but belonging to a group or something beyond just a product, an idea?
It's a good question. I can't think of anything right off. I mean, I definitely wanted to be part of the cool early adopter crowd when, buying AI tools.
Yeah. Yep.
Getting on Chat GPT and getting the pro version, like all that stuff. I think that was, but I don't really feel like a part of it. I mean, it's not an intimate community for sure, but it is like this kind of unspoken, you're kind of part of the leading edge,
Right.
I think there's a little bit of that feel to that. Yeah, I can't think of anything else right off. Back
Well,
when I
I'll
bought
tell
my
you a
first
product
Jeep.
that I bought recently, and I'm not ashamed to admit that my vulnerabilities, because I love the outdoors. And so, so I bought, a roof nest recently, the roof nest product, which is for camping. It's like you mount it on the top of your Jeep or your
Yep.
your SUV or whatever vehicle you have. You take it out camping. You don't have to set it up. It's right there on top. You pop it up. Well, it's beyond just, obviously it's camping, which I love to do, but there's a whole community of people that are out there and they're overlanding, people that just drive out in the middle of nowhere. To me, that's so attractive. Like there's nothing more attractive in the world. Just be able to drive your Jeep or your vehicle out in the middle of nowhere and then pop a tent up wherever you are. It's kind of that adventurous. And so they sell to a community, they create their own community. Mm-hmm. And I'll admit, I fall prey to this. I mean, everybody does that's, in that genre. But people fall prey to that, outdoor camping, just kind of going adventure out in the middle of nowhere, just popping up wherever you are, popping that tent up only takes like 20 seconds. I think she's like, you're ready to go.
Yeah. So, and I think Jeep is another good example of that too.
Oh yeah. Big time.
Definitely more in the beginning, any of these products, as they become mainstream, they lose some of that.
Yep.
But, Jeep, when I bought my first Jeep, back 2012, before they really took off, I think right after that, they really, really took off.
Yeah.
With the 4-door model. That's really what put them into another class, a whole nother group of people, was when they came out with the 4-door Wrangler instead of just the 2-door. Yeah, there was something about a Jeep that's like, I think Ford F-150 is similar. I think a lot of the truck market in general is that you can have a really nice vehicle, but it doesn't come off as a Mercedes or, an expensive vehicle, even though these things cost as much as a lot of those cars now.
Sure.
Like you can, on a F-150, I mean, you can easily spend $60,000, $70,000 on an F-150,
right.
Or you could get a, whatever C-Class Mercedes for 40. Mm-hmm. And most people will think the C-Class costs more because they just don't know. Right. So it's kind of this like I think Jeeps and the pickup truck market are the kind of these understated status symbols.
Right.
Like the people who know, but the people who don't know. Right. So it is kind of a click in that world.
Right.
And Jeep culture is even, it goes a little bit deeper. The off-road stuff, the Jeep Wave, which I've noticed recently because we still have a Jeep. When I'm driving around, because it's come so mainstream, there's fewer people who are doing the Jeep Wave than there used to be.
Yeah.
Because they're just not up with it. But apparently there's this whole thing. I don't know if you get it with your Jeep truck, but where people leave rubber duckies for each other on Jeeps.
Yeah, 3 times. I've been ducked 3 times.
Okay.
And I've only had my Gladiator for about a year.
Yeah.
And I've been ducked 3 times. So yeah.
See,
in fact, last week I was ducked.
Okay. Well, Sydney was about a week ago as well.
Okay.
That was the first time. She was like so excited. I never had that happen with my first Jeep. So I don't know when that trend started, but
I think it was just like a couple of years ago, and it's really caught fire. But I was walking out of a store this past week to the parking lot, and sure enough, there was a duck on my.
So have you bought? You can go on Amazon. You can buy a whole pack of those, so that you can leave them on people's.
That's right. And so the whole idea is you pass them. Like some people just line them up on their dashboard, but you kind of want to pass those along. So so normally it's a yellow. The last 2 I've got were yellow ducks. This one I got ducked this week. It was a brown duck.
Oh wow! I mean, there's all kinds now. There's like glitter ducks. There's all kinds of stuff. I think that's funny. Here's this kind of environmental type, outdoorsy, and then they're putting plastic
ducks.
rubber ducks on their
I know,
their
it's crazy.
Jeeps. They're on the trail and it falls off on the trail. Now we've got pollution in the trail.
Yep.
All right. Well, there's one other thing we want to talk about real quick before we head out.
Some AI stuff.
Yeah, a little AI segment here. So
yes,
tell me about this. You send this to me.
Okay.
It's called
I'm going to share it.
AudioPen.
AudioPen. Yes, AudioPen.
Let me share.
Let me bring it up. Are you going to share it?
I can, yeah. Unless you're going to do a demo with it or something.
Yeah, I thought I might try.
Yeah.
There we go. It's called AudioPen.ai. It's a free account. You can get it started. What I love about this is I was doing a little testing last night, but so I haven't had a lot of time for longevity's sake to say, over a period of time, but just the few times I've used it, it's actually pretty cool because it not only is it you can dictate into this. So you go to AudioPen.ai. And this is really cool for people that want to create articles or a book, and they're randomly dictating their thoughts just out loud.
I can see this when you show this to me, and I started looking at it. I was like, oh my God, this would be great. Like some of my best ideas come when I'm on a long drive.
Sure.
And you're by yourself in the car, and you can just talk out loud.
Just talk out loud.
Press this button, talk out loud, and then what happens when you do that? Because I was like, well, isn't this just like Otter? But it's not.
Yeah, it's not. So what it does is I think you get 3 minutes of per clip. So it's got a little countdown once you hit the record button.
Okay.
And then you can you start recording just your thoughts. I mean, it's just random thoughts. And then what it does is, I love the thing. It says go from fuzzy thought to clear text. So what it'll do, it'll transcribe your rambling thoughts, and then it will edit and organize them to show a coherent sentence or however long that you record. You can actually create, content that's already edited and ready to go. Now you may want to, so far I've done this about 3 or 4 times. I've tested it out and it's actually pretty good. Now you might want to go in. I mean, obviously AI is going to write in a textbook format, but from an editing standpoint, it clears out all of the ums and the uhs and all this stuff. So we could literally click the record button while we're, doing a podcast segment, Sean, and, it literally cleans it up and takes out all of the superfluous stuff that's not needed. And
so does it also expand what you're saying or create transitions between your things? Does it?
No, it pretty much just shows exactly what you're saying, but it organizes it. Let me see if I can give an example here. So
here, go ahead. Press.
I'm going to hit the record. Okay.
Summarize, Jonathan, just kind of summarize what we've talked about with cults today.
Okay. All right, here we go. Let's see. Let me stop that. All right. Okay. Apparently it's saving a note that I didn't know I was recording. So give me a second. So that's the thing. It's not the fastest thing in the world because it goes, there's three phases. It goes to recording, to transcribing, and then editing. So let me cancel this out and go back to.
I need to refresh the whole.
Click record. All right. So, okay. So I think we're recording. I can't tell. All right. Let's see.
It doesn't look like anything's happening.
Yeah. It usually shows that I'm recording. So let me stop this for a second.
Cancel it looks like it's stuck right now.
All right. I'm going to do a refresh. Of course it wouldn't work while we're. All right, so I'm gonna. All right, let me delete this. This is one that I did earlier. So I did a test run earlier before our show.
Okay.
And it actually wrote out this. So I was just I was speaking right from the hip, and then it with all the ums and the ahs, and then it wrote this out completely. It's 3 paragraphs, but In this episode, we discussed cults and their origins. We looked at Charles Manson, a classic example of a cult leader who started, and trust me, my speaking didn't sound anything like this, but it organized it, cleaned it up, and then, obviously you can go in and share. You can click share. You can, email it, and then clean it up even further. But this is kind of one of those ways. I think if you say, I don't know if they have. To be honest with you, I don't know if they have an app.
They do have an app. I read that, and then they have a Chrome extension.
Oh, okay, good.
So if you're reading a page, you could actually take notes verbally.
Okay.
If you're reading a page. So yeah, I thought that was cool, and I think the Pro version gives you 15-minute blocks instead of 3 minutes.
Okay, yeah,
that's the main difference.
So if you wanted just to record this 3 minutes at a time, you could do so. And if you want, do you know how much the paid version is?
I don't. I didn't look. I just read about it.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of kind of cool comments. Yeah, and I know there's some things you can in the Pro version that you can kind of tweak the settings.
Here we go. I had to allow it. I guess I didn't give it permission. Now I'm recording. Okay. So here's a recording. So on today's show, we talked about cults and the origin of cults. We talked about a new, a recent Netflix series on how to become a cult leader. And from that, we gave a lot of examples, Sean, on how to reinvent yourself, how to craft a unique belief system, about how to create an origin story. And then also how to control the actions of your followers so that they'll be completely devoted to you. All right, so I'm going to stop this, see what it says. I was just random on the fly, man.
There you go.
Let's see what it spits out. So now it's transcribing. Now it's rewriting. It's in the rewriting phase.
That's what I'm curious about. Like how much of this it actually changed. Can you zoom in on that a little bit? There you go.
Okay. Can you see that? Okay. Yep. So it says, today we discussed cults and their origins. We explored a recent Netflix series about becoming a cult leader. This led us to give examples on self-reinvention, crafting unique. So, I didn't say that.
Yeah, it definitely cleaned it up because you said how to on each of those.
Yeah, exactly.
So is there more to it, or did it just...
And controlling, well, that's pretty much all I said. It just kind of cleaned everything up and
really condensed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is cool.
Yeah. So it's gonna really clean and condense everything, and which I think is great. If you're driving, I think this is really cool because you can create content on the go by just randomly dictating stuff into this AI program, and then it will go and clean it up, transcribe it, edit it for you, and then save it. You can save it. So
yeah,
pretty cool.
Yeah, that's cool. It's called AudioPen.ai.
Yes, AudioPen.ai.
When I first looked at it, I thought it said Audio Open.
I know. Yeah, Audio Open.
For some reason, I see
it
the
should
word
be,
open.
like you said earlier, I think you texted me, it should be VoicePen or something like that.
Yeah, VoicePen would be much better because that's really what it does.
Right.
Unless you can import audio into it. I don't know if you can or not. It looks like it's just directly into the microphone.
Yeah, that would be cool too. If you could take some of your recordings off your iPhone or even a podcast and just throw it in there. I know you said it does, if the Pro version does what, 15 minutes?
Oh, wait, it does say, if you click the button in the lower left, that is one of the benefits of the Prime is you can upload a file.
Which one?
Not that screen. If you go back to the main screen, there was a up arrow in the bottom left corner. I don't see it on your screen. It's weird.
I have to go.
There it is.
Out of this.
There it is. It's on the lower left corner.
Oh, okay.
If you click that.
Oh, yeah, there you go. So depending on
some of these companies, these millennial companies that have these super simple icons and this super minimalist thing.
That you can't
drives me crazy. It's like,
I know.
I didn't know that was an upload button.
Yeah. All right. So here's the deal. You can get what is it? All right, 2 ways to upgrade. You got the lifetime deal, $150. Hey, that's not bad. If that's
Not
like
bad.
a lifetime.
If they stay in business, that's not a bad deal.
That's the question.
It's the risk. And that's a pretty common model when you launch a software company these days.
Yeah.
You know, you get your early adopters lifetime and then kind of slowly raise
Yeah.
prices.
Right.
Annual $75. I mean, that's
it's worth trying out for a year, I would think.
$6 a month. That's not bad.
Yeah. Worth trying out at least to test it.
Yeah.
Hey, if you could if you could get a book done in a year using this, because this gets you off the procrastination wheel, just because you're not, you're just.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, if you just sat down, using chat or something else and created an outline for your book,
right.
Something you're fairly familiar with. And this is kind of how some of the book publishers did it.
Sure.
5 or 10 years ago, and they're still doing it. Let's say you have 3 points per chapter.
Yeah.
If you did 10 to 15 minutes per point, just kind of rambling, you're going to have about 45 minutes per chapter, 7 to 8 chapters.
Right.
You've got a typical 6-hour nonfiction book. And you could do that in, a week or two of commuting, back and forth to the office or on a walk, So I don't know if the Prime would allow you to have your screen closed or not, or if you'd have to keep the screen on. I think I saw something about screen needs to be on, so I'm not sure.
I see. You can't just have it run in the background, right?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe there's a reason for that. Probably because it cancels out. It would cancel out if you can do
if you can do like quick segments. I'll tell you here's an idea, because one of my industry podcasts that I'm introducing to one of my my industry shows that I do on a weekly basis is that I'm going to start what's called the Marketing Minute. And so it's like one episode every other day, or it may turn into every day. We'll see how it goes. But for right now, it's like every other day, like 3 days a week, where I record a 1-minute segment on just one 1-minute tip. It's like a marketing tip, how you can improve this, different ways for companies out there that they can be looking at to, and this is online, offline marketing. And so you take a compilation of those, those are 1 minute.
Yeah.
And just run this through. And then, if you do that 3 days a week for 52 weeks, that's a book right there.
If you're capturing it with this, I mean, that'd make if it's 1 minute, you could probably get that down to a tweet.
That's right.
Or at least a Twitter or an X thread, I guess now. It's not Twitter anymore, it's X.
X.
Yeah, you could do a thread on, 3 minutes would be about a decent little thread. That'd make a great Twitter account.
Absolutely.
Go along with your podcast. So it's a cool little tool. There's all these tools coming out, just more than you can keep track of. But yeah, I think that's pretty cool, especially if you spend some time in the car. I could see how that could be really valuable to jot down some ideas, thoughts.
Did you say they did have an app, or you just have to?
Yeah, I think they do.
Oh, sweet.
I think it's basically app based, and then there's a Chrome extension for when you're on your desktop.
Okay.
So that any page you kind of wanted to verbally capture, you could.
Sure.
That would have been great when I was a copywriter.
Right.
I could fire that thing up and do 15 minutes of research and just kind of talk my notes into it. I tried that when I first got into copywriting with Dragon Dictate. You remember having Dragon Dictate?
Oh man, I remember that program. I used to try that thing. I hated it.
That was awful because you had to say every punctuation and comma and then you start talking like that in real life, and it was just annoying. So I'm glad AI's come a long way since the Dragon Dictate days.
Yep.
So all right, good stuff.
Yeah, fantastic. And that again is audiopen.ai. We'll post a link. We'll share the link to this article that we've been discussing. And I think that's it, Sean. It's been fun. Good episode.
put a couple of those links in the comments. If you're watching on
yeah.
Facebook or YouTube, they should pop up down there.
Definitely.
As well. So
okay. Cool. Well, to all of our listeners, you can always find us persuasionbythepint.com. You can find us on all of your podcast platforms, Stitcher Radio, iHeart, Spotify, wherever you find your favorite podcast. We're there. You can find us on YouTube. And as Sean mentioned earlier, thank you. What did you say, Sean, earlier? I just lost my train of thought. Oh yeah. Please leave us a rating.
Yes. Some reviews.
Leave us a nice rating on there. We need those. We never ask for them. That's our failure. We never ask you to give us good ratings. So please do that.
Yeah. You're supposed to smash that like button. I think on YouTube's, right. Whatever. Like, yeah.
Exactly.
You know what you're supposed to do if you like a show. Just do it. We shouldn't have to ask.
That's right. Hey, have a great weekend, and we'll see you all next week, episode 320.
All right.
See ya.
ya.
All right.